In a world and time when so much is changing, there is still so much of our culture that has to be documented and kept alive. Who are the bearers of these precious living cultures? How do they pass on a knowledge transmitted through the ages? What they represent has survived colonization, conflict, marginalization, and yet they persist. Sila ang sisidlan, the living vessels that store dayaw, our knowledge, our pride. All throughout this season of Dayaw, we've met the culture bearers, the Malilikanang Bayan awardees or GAMABAs, the teachers and purveyors of traditional dance, the people behind museums, all who continually define sisidlan, the vessels that bear our indigenous cultures into the present time. On our season ender, we discover a pocket of culture that has survived, even thrives in spite and despite modern encroachment. The Iraynon Bukidnon people of Antique have continued to live in their ancestral lands. Their close and deep relationship with their environment has been kept hidden, undisturbed, affected only by the factors that they choose to be of import. The Iraynon Bukidnon of Antique can still claim that harmonious relationship with the elements that shape their lives, the environment, the spirits, the traditions that have colored their relationships with themselves and with others.
When we speak of Iraynon Bukidnon, first the word Iraynon comes from the root words Iraya, no? From the word Iraya, and non is a suffix actually designating the place of origin. So for us, for people here in Panay, we use rivers, big systems of water as points of reference. So when we say Iraya, it actually refers to headwaters, no? From the headwaters, water coming from the interior. And the word non, no, it's a suffix referring to the place where you come from. So when you say Iraynon, you come from Iraya, no? And the word Bukidnon, it actually comes from the two words Bukid and Non. Bukid, of course, for us is mountain. If you say Bukidnon, someone who actually comes from the mountain. So Iraynon Bukidnon would refer to specifically people in the highlands of Antique. Most of these Iraynon, and I think all of them actually are found, no, in the highlands, no, in the interior parts of the mountains. No, it's quite sometimes inaccessible actually, no. Pero pag sinabi nating when we speak of Iraynon, it's usually in the province of Antique.
The long journey into the hinterlands of Antique was initially to document the agricultural traditions of the Iraynon. The terraces that they built may be less known than the world-famous payo of the Ifugao, but they are equally valuable evidence of a people's agricultural response to a particular and very different environment.
Actually, when you go to areas of Antique, specifically if you go to General Fulion, there is actually a research conducted by one also faculty from UP. One of the faculty from UP, no, he actually said that there are certain words associated, no. If you try to ask words, mention words such as atog, patok, and kalog, no, kalog. These are words associated in rice terracing or pagpatok or pagatog. Like kalog is actually referring to, no, when you actually dug a certain portion for irrigation, no, for water irrigation. Atog and patok would refer to like the clearing of the land, of the slopes after kaingin, no. And then the other term would refer to the systematic way of actually, no, putting stones, rice straws, as well as mud, no, land, to actually serve as a wall for the terrace. Many of the people in the areas of Antique for Iraynon Bukidnon, their way of living actually is, no, farming. Because these areas, no, I believe that these areas, they have a very good relationship with nature. So yung kanilang livelihood is also, much of it is also related sa kanilang environment. Ng province of Antique, parang hindi pa siya masyadong na-explore ng mga researchers, no? So even yung concept ng rice terraces was, yung term actually na ginagamit ng iba was it was discovered, but I believe, no, I think, though, if personally, if I would have to use a term, it would be rediscovered, kasi even before 2014 andyan na yan siya, because we said, no, it has been there for quite, no, a number of years, hundreds of years, as they claim, no, hundreds of years. And even that particular claim, we have to validate it pa rin, no.
To hear the Iraynon describe their agricultural practices is to peer into a life that has been molded by the relationship to their environment. Spoken in the simplest of ways, the words of Jolito Bayog, an Iraynon farmer, trace the time-honored practices of Iraynon terracing. Amazingly, their agricultural calendar yields 3 harvests a year.
Tinong aming ginawa ng mga Iraynon, nung unang tumira dito ang mga matatanda namin, ay dito rin sila nagbubuhay dahil nagtitiis muna nung araw pa. Parang makagawa ng mga kabuhayan nila, nangyari na ang rice terraces. Unang nagsisimula, nagkakaingin kami. Puputol kami ng mga kahoy at saka maghukay rin pagbandang huli ng mga panahon para bubuhay kami dito. Ang first cropping naman po, yung August mayroon din at saka September hanggang October. Ang second cropping po ay January, February. Third cropping, May, June.
The system of terracing also involves the building of the stone walls, much like the Ifugao of northern Luzon. But the terrain here slopes in a gentler manner, allowing for wider terraces, all worked by kin and community.
Noon pa daw sabi ng lolo ko, wala. Pero nang naglalaki ng mga lolo ko at saka mga tatay namin, yan ang nagagawa ng mga rice terraces ng bawat isa sa kanila. Lalo pa kami rin na maglalaki ng mga anak nila. Kami rin naggagawa ng mga malawak na parang marami rin kami. Nung araw, kukunti lang yung mga matatanda dito. Siyempre, konti lang man ang nila, ang produkto. Sa ngayon, malawak na yung lahat ng mga rice terraces, pinaparte namin yan sa kamag-anak. Sa nung araw, nung unang panahon, sa isang matanda, mayroon na isang halimbawa na may isang hektarya ka dito, lininis. Marami yung mga anak mo, pinaghati-hatian nila. Kung 10 hektarya ang sa kanya, lahat yan sa mga anak niya na pang hati-hati para mapundar nila.
What is most amazing is that the Iraynon here hardly need to sell their produce. Their 3 crops a year are enough for them to live on.
Kahit 3 bisis ka mag-ani, walang pupunta sa bayan po. Tatago lang. Tatago lang kung kaya mo kainin ang produkto mo, kakain mo lang. Kung mayroon na mga tauhan namin na wala, bibili rin sa amin kung mayroon pa kami.
Though many of them have turned Catholic, the animist roots of the Iraynon are still seen in the rituals of the harvest. And of everyday life. In the communal gatherings where music and chanting are heard.
Tingki kebelaan hakdan kebelaan kamu kebelaan aram bara aras mo bat ada ka pa ta panguyangan ko ang ano ni balik mo ay amu jang hambal nga sarundanan amu juga amu kada tuig nga halad kami kang mga paranguyangan ko oras tigrani.
In his principles and beliefs that they follow, no, when you go there, they believe in the concept of babaylans, no? Very alive yung concept ng babaylan sa kanila. And I believe no, in many of our indigenous people, yung idea that, kasi it's a reflection of how they see the environment, no? We call that as worldview. They see the world that we are not the only human beings here, and there are other spiritual beings that coexist with us. The concept of babaylan, Antique actually, we're not only referring in Antique as like in an IP area, but Antique as a province in itself figured well in the history of Panay in terms of the presence of babaylans. So more so when we try to talk about indigenous peoples, because as I've said earlier, it's actually a reflection of how they see the world. No, the world is actually the type of worldview they have is that we're not the only people here, we're not the only beings here. We actually share the world with other spirit beings. Therefore, no, we must try to also respect them. And it's also reflective, no, this idea of belief systems nila is also reflective of how they actually treat their environment.
Much research must still be done in order to fully understand the lifeways of the Iraynon of General Fulion. Theirs is a life that is far from idyllic, but what they have, their relationship to a land that has been most generous to them, and the viable, self-sustaining tradition of agriculture that has molded their communities is enviable. In a world where so many life-sustaining practices have vanished, the Iraynon have much to be proud of. The highlands of Panay yielded another precious encounter, this time in the community of Kalinog. An encounter with a woman who was a bearer of an important tradition. Much has been hypothesized about the binukot, or well-kept maiden, a young lady chosen for her fairness and her intrinsic connection to the spirits. Many of the myths about the binukot contain fascinating details about how she travels, born in a basket or hammock, and how her feet were never allowed to touch the ground. The binukot we met, Rosita Caballero, had mastered the epic chants and the rituals of her people. Though old and frail, she displayed a keen alertness, a vibrant spirit. Sadly, she passed away last July. But she lives on in the precious footage. Forever, she remains the last binukot.
Ako si Rosita Caballero.
Si Rosita Caballero, isang binukot o well-kept maiden. Nagsimula siyang ibukot o ipasok sa loob ng kwarto nang hindi pa siya daw marunong maglakad. Dahil sa kanilang angkan, siya ang pinakamaganda at saka pinakamaraming pera. At saka sa loob ng kwarto, may uripon siya, means nani or yaya. At saka bawal siya mainitan ng araw.
Diyan sa kwarto. Kung mamuson ako, ginapamuson ako ka, ginikanan ko sa Imbis din mo magkuhan ka rin. Marami mo nakita lang na ako pagpagsawa ka.
Kahit daw ang mga PC at Philippine Constabulary dati, yung hindi siya pwede makita dahil binukot na siya kasi maraming curious na makita siya kung anong itsura niya. Pero bawal. Kasi yan ang sa kultura.
Yan, pirtahan ka, magkawala itong mga tao.
From Christine Moico, a researcher and ethnomusicologist, here are some notes on the fabled Binukot, as well as a little-known native name of the enigmatic Rosita Caballero.
A Binukot is historically linked as a principalia, a woman of prestige, of wealth. In the Panay Highlands, she is popularly recognized as someone who has knowledge, who is beautiful, who has a fair skin. One of the important stages, when she's ready to be introduced to the public, because she's not been seen in the community for a long time. When she comes out, that's when she dances the Tigbabayi. It's actually also been a hawk eagle dance, but she's covered up, she's veiled. The people still don't really see her, and then when she dances, eventually, the people know her, and so it's being physicalized as well. She comes out and she dances, and she shows what she has learned while she was confined. Not any family can afford to have a binukot. Usually the landed ones, the ones who have huge tracts of land, and they can afford to exempt one child from farm work. So that's when, some of them can even have more than one. That's why you say there's social prestige to that, as well as economic prestige. If more information can be given in the different areas of the Panay Highlands, I wouldn't say it's the last one, because they're still the living ones now. I call her as Yaya La Paz, and she's the wife of one of the most notable, chanters in Panay Highlands, Leopoldo Caballero. And yeah, she's one of the prettiest binukots I've seen, in a sense that she has kept her skin well, her hair, and taken care of her. Of course, her health dwindled through the years.
We also learn from Moico of another little-known fact about the hierarchy of young, well-kept maidens.
We distinguish the term binukot and nabukot. Nabukot are those who are eventually married off. After years of being confined and learning the tradition inside the room, when they're ready for marriage, so the family ask for a bride price. I wouldn't even say a payment for her, but a bride gift.
Rosita's own story points out that in traditional Panay Bukidnon society, she may have been classified as a nabukot rather than as binukot, as she was ceremonially married off by her parents at the age of 10.
Away pa. Why? Imbis din mo huli doon.
Bago siya magsama bilang mag-asawa, kailangan ang lalaki na nagbayad ng dowry, manilbihan muna ng 2 taon. Mag-igib, magsibak ng kahoy, lahat ng trabahong bukid. Yan ang gagawin na maging asawa niya.
Ano pagpisyo? Hindi ang bata kinang-apo ko nabukot ko na pa, hindi ka.
Ang isang binukot, mahirap. Pag ang mapangasawa na lalaki, ay walang tiyaga at saka hindi mapagmahal dahil ang isang binukot, walang talagang alam, walang kamuwang-muwang sa trabahong bahay, sa gawaing bahay. Kaya nga kailangan, kung mag-asawa ka ng binukot, kailangan talagang mahal na mahal mo hanggang ikamatay mo na pagsilbihan mo. Hanggang ngayon, sinusubuan pa yan, nakaupo na yan sa duyan. May siling pa na sa uluhan niya. Si Manong pa yung nagapaligo. Si Manong lahat ng magpabihis sa kanya, magtimpla ng Milo niya, lahat nakaupo lang hanggang ngayon.
Like pagabuhi mo, may asawa.
She has already, come to terms with the life, in the lowland, in the town of Kalinog, Tapas, the surrounding towns, and that agricultural, society that's surrounding the Garangan and the nearby areas. So she can balance these different kinds of living, the modern world and the traditional world. So she has both the tradition and the change within her.
Fragments and memories from a life of privilege, and her own struggle as a woman wanting to be educated, wanting to break away from the confines of tradition, adjusting to the realities of a changing world. There were many secrets that Rosita carried with her to her grave when she passed away in July 2017. In our minds, she will forever be etched as the last of a long line of well-kept maidens. In the global world that we live in, not one community or culture can ever remain pure, pristine, untouched. That is a myth we all like to fantasize about. But the reality is that change and the influence of the world are ever present, keeping culture alive and dynamic. Compared to other Philippine indigenous peoples, there is a scarcity of research about the Iraynon Bukidnon. But a few dedicated scholars have now focused their efforts on research and dedicated study. Geography, location, language, and cultural attributes may help identify and classify. But how do we truly understand the soul not only of the Iraynon, but of the animist peoples of Panay?
When we talk about Panay Bukidnon, or when we talk about the indigenous people of Panay, we should not think of political divisions. I gave the name Panay Bukidnon to include the indigenous people in the 4 other provinces, Antique, Aklan, Capiz, and Iloilo, Because I found out in my long years of research, and even for their recheck, that they have a common culture, they're the same culture, the same practices, the same indigenous political structure, the same practice of marrying within the family group, meaning they're indigenous people. They're really artists by heart. Playing subing, parang just harp. Then playing tikombo, what would look like a bamboo violin. There are parents whose children are very good in binanog dancing, in panubok, meaning embroidery, with patterns based from plants, indigenous plants, and then flowers, and then animals, and some characters from the epics,
Dr. Magos' studies have even revealed the intricacies of a traditional society as reflected in the proper attire. An attire that, when complete, endows the wearer with the confidence to sing, dance, move, and proclaim a pride of place and identity. The ideals of a race, the qualities that make men and women the very best that their society holds ideal, are reflected in what they wear and how they present themselves and their cultures to the world. Our brief encounter with them shows us just how intertwined all aspects of life must be for life to be truly meaningful, for culture to be truly dynamic. Environment. Agriculture. concepts of well-being and wealth. Music and the arts, attire and behavior, all are inextricably linked. The question will always be asked, in the face of real problems like climate change, marginalization, militarization of ancestral lands, poverty, lack of education, what do the Panay Bukidnon stand to lose? To answer this, we need only to look at ourselves and what we have become. What does it take to be a vessel of traditional culture? In the case of the Gawad Manlilikanang Bayan awardees, it takes fortitude, a mastery of a single passion, a staunch belief in the importance of one's mission, even in the face of so much neglect. In the case of the Iraynon Bukidnon, a steadfast love and dependence on the environment and the relationships with the land nurtured through centuries. For the teachers and mentors who study and preserve indigenous cultures, it takes courage. It takes heart and love to look into the cultures of others, to preserve these, to hold them up to the world and say, this is special, this is worth preserving. I hope that this season of Dayaw has inspired you in your own way, in your own communities, with your own traditions, to be bearers of culture. Lahat tayo ay maaring maging sisidlan. We are all bearers of Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride.